Welcome to today's topic. It's okay to fail. Every failure is not the end, but a quiet step forward. And in this video, you'll discover why falling down might be the most powerful part of your journey. The problem with perfect. We live in a world where everyone looks perfect online. Social media shows us other people's wins and happy moments. This makes us think everyone else is doing great while we are not. But this is not true. Behind every success story, there are many failed tries, many no answers, and many moments of doubt. Winston Churchill, who led Britain during World War II, knew this well. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. He said, Churchill himself failed many times before becoming great. He did poorly in school as a child. He lost in his early jobs. He even lost elections. But these failures did not break him. They made him stronger and better. They shaped him into the brave leader who helped his country win the war. Think about how we learn to walk as babies. Every child falls down hundreds of times when learning to walk. But no parent thinks these falls are terrible failures. We cheer for each try. We know that falling is not the opposite of success. Falling is a step toward success. What science tells us? Scientists who study the brain have found something amazing. When we make mistakes, our brains work harder. They make new connections and get stronger. Failing is actually one of the best ways we learn. Carol Dweck, a teacher at Stanford University, has spent many years studying what she calls the growth mindset. This means believing that we can get better at things through hard work. Her studies show that people who see failure as a chance to grow do much better than people who think their abilities cannot change. In her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, Dweck writes about successful people. She says they all have one thing in common. They see failure as helpful information, not as a bad thing. They know that every setback teaches them what works and what does not work. Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, understood this perfectly. When people asked him about his many failed tries to make the light bulb, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He saw each failure as a step closer to finding the answer. He kept trying when others would have stopped. Good things from mistakes. Some of the world's best discoveries came from big mistakes. Penicillin, one of the most important medicines ever, was found by accident. Alexander Fleming forgot to clean his lab before going on holiday. When he came back, he saw that mold had grown in one of his experiments. Instead of throwing it away, he looked closer and found that the mold could kill bad bacteria. Post-it notes, those small yellow sticky papers we use everywhere, came from a failed try to make super strong glue. Spencer Silver, a scientist at 3M, wanted to make very strong glue, but he made glue that did not stick well at all. This failure sat around for years. Then another worker, Art Fry, thought it could be used to make bookmarks that stick and come off easily. This failure became one of 3M's best products. These stories show us that failure often takes us to places we never imagined. J.K. Rowling, before writing the famous Harry Potter books, was poor and sad. She was a single mother with no money. 12 book companies said no to her Harry Potter book before one finally said yes. In a speech at Harvard University, Rowling said, "Failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me." The price of playing safe. The opposite of failure is not success. It is staying still and not growing. When we are so scared of failing that we never take risks, we make sure we will never be our best. The safe place feels nice, but it becomes like a jail that stops us from growing. Theodore Roosevelt said something powerful in his famous Man in the Arena speech. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming." This speech tells us that having the courage to try, even when we might fail, is better than staying safe on the side. The people who laugh at others who fail, but never try anything themselves, give nothing good to the world. It is the people who are willing to try, to risk failing for something they care about, who make the world better. Think about Colonel Harlan Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Sanders heard no more than 1,000 times when he tried to sell his chicken recipe to restaurants. He was 62 years old, an age when most people stop working. But Sanders kept going. His willingness to keep trying after so many failures built a huge business. Thinking about success in a new way. Maybe our biggest mistake is how we think about success and failure. We think these are two different things, you either win or lose. But life is not that simple. Every experience, good or bad, teaches us something important. Every try, whether it works or not, makes us stronger and better. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail for fighting for what was right in South Africa. This could seem like a terrible failure. So many years of his life taken away. But Mandela did not see it as defeat. He used those years to think, to get stronger, and to become a leader who could help his country change peacefully. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Mandela said. His life showed this truth. The Japanese have a beautiful art called kintsugi. They repair broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks or trying to make the pot look like it was never broken, they make the cracks beautiful with gold. This makes the pot more beautiful and more valuable because of its broken places. This idea can help us think about our own failures. We are not less because of our mistakes. We are more interesting and stronger because of them. The courage to be imperfect. One of the best things we can learn is that being perfect is not possible, and we should not want it anyway. A life with no failure would be a life with no growth, no risks, no challenges that show who we really are. Brené Brown writes in her book Daring Greatly, "Vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. Being willing to fail, to be imperfect, to try even when we might not win, this is real courage. Many of us have a mean voice inside that tells us we are bad every time we make a mistake. We talk to ourselves in ways we would never talk to a friend. We make our bad points bigger and our good points smaller. But what if we could be kind to ourselves the way we are kind to others? What if we could see our failures not as proof that we are not good enough, but as proof that we are willing to try? The old teacher Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Our fear of failure often makes us avoid hard things. We do not try because we are scared we might fail. And by not trying, we make sure we never learn the skills we need to win. We need to change how we think, from seeing failure as something terrible to seeing it as a normal and important part of doing anything that matters. Learning to fail forward. The goal is not to never fail. That is not possible. The goal is to learn how to fail forward, to turn our mistakes into steps up instead of things that make us fall. This takes some important skills and ways of thinking. First, we need to learn that what we do is not who we are. Failing at something does not make us failures as people. When we try something and it does not work, we have not failed. We have just found one way that does not work. This difference may seem small, but it is very important. It helps us feel good about ourselves even when things go wrong. It lets us try again without feeling shame. Second, we need to get better at learning from our failures. After each problem, we should ask, what can I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? What new things did I learn? This thinking turns failure from something that hurts into something that teaches us. Third, we need to build strength, the ability to come back from bad times and keep going. Being strong does not mean we do not feel pain. It means we have the inner power to feel hard things without being destroyed by them. Maya Angelou wrote in her book, "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings." We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. The gift of failure. When we look back at our lives, we often see that our biggest failures led to our biggest wins. The job we did not get opened the door to a better one. The relationship that ended made room for a better one. The business that failed taught us things that helped our next business win. Failure, in this way, is not something to fear. It is something to be thankful for, a hard teacher. Maybe, but a good one. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he started, in 1985. For many people, this would be a terrible failure. But Jobs later said being fired from Apple was the best thing that could have happened to him. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. While away from Apple, Jobs started Next and Pixar. Both became very successful. When Apple bought Next, Jobs came back to the company and made it even bigger and better. This story shows us an important truth. Sometimes we need to fail at one thing to find what we are really meant to do. Sometimes the path we think we should take is wrong. Only by failing on that path do we find ourselves going towards something better. Accepting the journey. Maybe the most important thing about failure is that it is part of the path to any big goal. If we are really living, pushing ourselves, chasing big dreams, we will fail sometimes. The only way to never fail is to never try anything important And that is the biggest failure of all. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Do not be too timid and squeamish about your actions. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better." This way of thinking changes how we see failure. Instead of seeing each problem as terrible, we can see it as information from a test. We are not failing. We are finding out what works and what does not work in the big test of life. The path to success is almost never a straight line. It is a twisting road with turns, wrong ways, and surprises. But each of these problems helps us grow. They build our character in ways that easy success never could. The writer Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act. Just once. With beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love." In the end, accepting that it is okay to fail is really about giving ourselves permission to be human, not perfect. Always learning, always growing, sometimes winning and sometimes losing, but always moving forward. It is about letting go of the heavy load of trying to be perfect. It is about accepting the messy, beautiful truth of a life really lived. The most successful people are not those who never fail. They are the ones who fail more often than others because they try more often than others. They know that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of how we get to success. They know that every no brings them closer to a yes. They know that every problem has the seeds of a comeback. They know that every ending makes space for a new start. So take the risk. Start the business. Write the book. Ask for the better job. Tell someone how you feel. Try something new. And if you fail when you fail, know that you are with good people. You join every person who ever dared to dream big and risk falling short. Because in the end, the only real failure is not trying. Everything else is just part of the journey, hard maybe, painful sometimes. But in the end, it changes us and helps us grow. It is not just okay to fail. Failing is important. Failure is how we learn, how we grow, how we become the people we are meant to be. Samuel Beckett said it well. Ever tried? Ever failed? No matter. Try again. Fail again. Fail better. This is not just permission to fail. It is an invitation to accept failure as a needed friend on the path to a meaningful, brave, fully lived life. The question is not if we will fail, we will. The question is if we will have the courage to get back up, clean ourselves off, and try again, and again, and again, because that is where real success is, not in never falling, but in getting up every single time we do.